Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining today. My name is Danny Katz, and I am the Executive Director of COPERG, the Colorado Public Interest Research Group. We are a statewide advocacy group working to ensure that people are safe and healthy in our state here and able to pursue their own individual well-being as well as the common good. I'm joined today by a number of other people who are going to really bring home why it's so important that Congress acts to pass some of the key clean air and clean energy provisions in what has commonly been referred to as the Build Back Better plan. I want to start, though, by recognizing that, we just went through one of the worst ozone pollution seasons we've ever had. We have seen way too many examples of global warming fueled extreme weather events. And it's clear that we need to do more to cut pollution from our buildings, from our vehicles, and from our energy sector. For months, we've heard about this Build Back Better plan in Congress, and today we're going to drill down into some of the key clean air and clean energy provisions and really talk about what that means from a variety of different perspectives. I want to talk about a few of the key provisions are around tax credits and rebates that will help people add solar panels or make their homes more energy efficient or access an electric vehicle. There are also important investments in regenerative farming and also training for the next generation of clean energy workers. I want to thank the partners who helped bring this together, not just COPERG, but Mountain Mamas, the Blue Green Alliance, Colorado Fiscal Institute, and Healthy Air and Water Colorado. And I just want to emphasize one more time that we have the solutions to reduce pollution and reduce our reliance on fossil fuel infrastructure, and we need Congress to act. We know these solutions can work and can become a reality, but we'll need Congress to act. So on that note, I want to turn it over to some of the different speakers that we have today to just put it into their perspective. How would these different provisions or incentives or policies impact them? And so I'm going to start with Melissa. So Melissa, if you go ahead and just introduce yourself and go ahead and tell your story.
Great, thanks, Danny. Hello, my name is Melissa Colono. I live in Denver, and I'm a mother of 3 young kids. My kids love being outside, but sometimes I lie awake at night worrying if they'll be able to be outside in 10 or 20 years. Even today, there are times that we can't go outside to play because of the poor air quality along the Front Range. The primary causes of the polluted air are transportation emissions and the oil and gas industry. My concerns about these issues have compelled me to make several lifestyle choices to reduce my family's environmental impact. Last year, we were able to add solar panels to our home to reduce our use of natural gas and coal. Adding solar was something that we'd wanted to do for years, but solar panels are expensive. So tax credits made it feasible for us to switch to clean, renewable energy. But we need solar on more than just my house, right? Widespread and generous tax credits for solar would incentivize whole communities to electrify their homes. Switching to renewables from fossil fuels will reduce air pollution for our communities and slow the worst impacts of climate change. It'll protect our children's futures. Similarly, incentivizing people to exchange their gas-powered vehicles for electric ones is an important part of reducing transportation emissions and our dependence on fossil fuels. My family hasn't yet been able to make this change, but financial credits and incentives would make it more feasible for us and so many others. Electrifying school buses is another important step that I would like to see to reduce transportation emissions and improve air quality. I'm really interested in my children riding school buses, but I worry about the health impacts of the fumes from the diesel buses. The levels of dangerous pollutants inside the bus apparently can actually be many times higher than outside air. Switching to electric school buses would mean healthier rides for kids and cleaner air for everyone in our communities. But as I was talking about outdoors, we also must continue to work to protect our outdoor spaces. This week, marks the 1-year anniversary of President Biden's order to pause oil and gas leasing on public lands. And yet the Biden administration has resumed leasing without taking sufficient action to ensure our lands remain protected, clean, and accessible. It's critical to protect this public land for future generations, and we're looking to the president to reform this harmful leasing program. To conclude, I just want to say the majority of parents I know are really worried about the climate crisis. Like me, they're worried about the impact it'll have on their children's futures. People want to take action. However, most people will only take action and make changes if there's financial incentive to do so. Solar and electric vehicle tax credits are such an important part of the clean energy transition. These incentives will have a measurable impact on people's lives and people's actions. Most importantly, they will help improve the quality of life for future generations like my children. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Melissa. And we will be taking questions. If you have questions in the chat, please feel free to put those in there or the Q&A, and we can come back to each of our speakers. But I think that really highlighted one of the biggest components of what we, something we need to see Congress act on, which is those clean energy tax credits, whether it's for electric vehicle purchases, whether it's for solar panels. So some good examples there. Next, I want to invite Kirsten to share a little bit about her story. So Kirsten, if you dive in, make sure you introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Sure. Hi, my name is Kirsten Schatz, and I live with my husband and 2 young children in the Sunnyside neighborhood on Denver's north side. We love our neighborhood, the parks, the diversity, the neighborhood school our children attend, and being close enough to bike downtown. At the same time, like so many people during the pandemic, we're wishing we had a little bit more space at home for our growing family and possibly to have room to take care of one of our aging parents down the line. So we're hoping to build an addition on our home this year. We also care a lot about the future of our planet and about the air quality here in our community. I believe we need big system-wide solutions to problems like climate change that are global. At the same time, we also want to be doing our part right here in our own home. We live in an older house and we love it, but it clearly was not built or insulated with energy efficiency in mind. Like I'm literally sitting here wrapped in a fleece blanket as we speak. It's unevenly hot in the summer. It's cold and drafty in the winter. That wastes energy, of course, and it also wastes money. So while we're doing construction on our home, we'd love to also move towards a much more energy efficient structure. My hope is that the house would actually use less energy after construction for heating and cooling and lighting than before the addition. We also don't want to be reliant anymore on fossil fuels for heating our home and heating our water. My dream is that we can eventually have Excel come out and take away our gas meter. But to be honest, we don't know a lot about how to go about this to fully electrify our home. And when we asked different architects and contractors about it, no one else seemed to have a lot more information or experience than we do. We're also concerned about how much this important step will cost. I think if we can put policies in place to incentivize moving our homes and other buildings away from fossil fuels, that will really help jumpstart the market so that architects and contractors will be able to better advise homeowners in the future, hopefully before too long, hopefully before our project is underway. And of course, it would make all of this more affordable for everyone who wants to make these changes for their homes. For anyone going through the process of making big changes to their homes or properties and who want to do the right thing to make them more efficient and less dependent on using fossil fuels, it should be easier and more affordable to do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Second, let me just remove the spotlight. So thank you, Kirsten, for telling that story. And, you know, it's something that I have run into quite a bit as well. I mean, just this last weekend, I was talking to my parents who needed to get a new stove. And we were talking about, oh, here's a chance to do something more energy efficient. And they were having a hard time finding the information. They were having a hard time finding somebody who could do the work. And frankly, it was just more expensive. And so these tax credits, these incentives can really go a long way to helping ensure that people who are in the process of doing these renovations and other upgrades have the chance to do the upgrades the right way. Let me ask Roberto, why don't you come in here and see if I can replace. There you go. Go ahead, Roberto. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about this from an agriculture perspective?
Great. Thank you, Danny. Hello, everyone. My name is Roberto Mesa. I'm a first-generation farmer. I immigrated from Mexico to the United States when I was 5 years old and had a lot of exposure in different communities. I grew up in the Central Valley in California, got to experience firsthand the agriculture industry over there. Little did I know that that was going to be my future career. I started farming in 2012 in Ohio and came to Colorado in 2014 with a farm and business partner to develop our own farm here. We were blessed to find some resources through his family to purchase 35 acres in Bennett, Colorado, right at the Eastern Plains, the gateway to Denver. And we didn't really know what we were going to do because, here is a large piece of land that we really wanted to approach with the focus on regenerating our soils, improving the nutrient content, and providing the best, most nutritious source of food to our communities. Doing so really presented a lot of challenges as first-generation farmers, accessing resources, technical assistance, and working with the land in a way that provided that opportunity was something that we had to find innovative ways of working around. So, we started to really focus on controlled environment agriculture, and we're very fruitful to have a greenhouse operation that allowed us to grow year round. However, because of the large acreage of our property, we weren't fully able to take advantage of that. And so we started to find ways of ensuring our viability. One of those was creating our own distribution company called the East Denver Food Hub. Not only were we able to ensure our viability during the pandemic, when sales dropped, supply chain disruptions caused problems with acquiring our supplies, but we were also able to network with a lot of other farmers. We learned that in Colorado, fruit trees were blossoming earlier and actually experiencing a frost that burned off their buds, thus reducing the orchard production in Colorado and Palisade peaches, which is what we're really known for, by almost 50%. A lot of farms continue to struggle, and it takes about 6 or 7 years to get up to full production again. We've also realized that farmers are needing to use more nutrients and fertilizers to keep up with the production, when in reality, we can really invest in soil health, improving cover crop production, which essentially allows us to sequester carbon, CO2, and carbon monoxide from the atmosphere produced by the burning of fossil fuels. And that is the food source of the soil food web beneath our feet. So we have the solutions on our farmland. With the Build Back Better proposals, we're able to really tap into conservation programs and existing technical assistance initiatives to support farmers in not only providing the best foods possible, but in supporting us in becoming really frontline fighters against climate change. So we could potentially be viewed as alongside other regenerative, renewable practices and initiatives to really help promote agriculture as an opportunity to fight climate change and ensure the longevity of agriculture and food security for our communities. So we really support this bill. We want to see great things happen. And I think together we'll be able to promote a lot of the values that are needed in such an urgent time in our history and in our climate.
Great, thank you, Roberto, and thank you for making that connection between agriculture and being a frontline fighter on climate change. So thank you very much for that. Next, I'd like to spotlight Dr. Habermel. If you will talk a little bit about the health impacts and what you're seeing in your profession.
Absolutely. Thanks, Danny. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here today. My name is Nikita, and I'm a pediatric emergency medicine physician at Children's Hospital, Colorado. In the emergency department, I'm seeing firsthand the impacts of climate change on our children's health. I'm treating more and more children with chronic respiratory illnesses like asthma. Many people may not know that asthma is actually the most common pediatric chronic disease. And in 2017, it affected 6 million American children. That's a lot. We need to take more aggressive action on air quality so that future generations don't need to suffer unnecessarily. I'm saddened by the number of children having severe asthma attacks, especially in the summertime and during wildfire season when air quality is at its worst. No child should ever have to feel scared because of difficulty breathing and not being able to catch their breath. Subjectively, after the Marshall Fire this last month, I saw more patients in the ED with asthma exacerbations, which was unusual for December and likely due to climate-related changes. Climate investments in the Build Back Better Act, like reducing emissions through increasing access to renewable energy, can significantly improve air quality, which will lead to less children struggling to breathe in my ED. Children are resilient and enjoy life by living in the moment. It's not their fault that the climate crisis has reached this point, but we as a community can make changes for the future. I remember treating a little 5-year-old girl with tears in her eyes as she looked up at her parents trying to catch her breath. She was breathing way too fast and using far more muscles than was normal due to a severe asthma exacerbation. Thankfully, they made it in time to the ED, and we were able to get her the treatment she needed to turn a corner. But she must have been terrified. Can you imagine a world where we have more people who carpool, use high-speed trains, and have more accessible, cleaner public transportation? I can, and even more importantly, less children like this little girl will have to experience the horrible feeling of not being able to breathe. It's important to remember that not only does this impact our children and future generations, but I would guess that many of you know someone with asthma or cystic fibrosis or COPD who may have these exacerbations due to poor air quality. And we can try and prevent these exacerbations with changes suggested by the Build Back Better Act. Furthermore, not only would our communities be healthier, but there is a financial benefit as well. Decreasing asthma exacerbations would mean that less money would be spent on ED visits, hospital stays, and ICU admissions for both local families and the government. Lastly, not only as a pediatric emergency medicine physician, but as a mother, it is extremely important to me for my 2-year-old and any future children to grow up with clean air. It is only fair and their right to live in a healthy world without being worried that they can't breathe when they go outside to play on the playground. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. And thanks for adding that health perspective and the perspective from a medical professional. Appreciate that. We talked a little bit, you've heard a few stories now about people who want to do the right things, putting solar panels in, putting energy efficiency pieces in their homes, but sometimes it can be hard to find the folks who can do that work. And I know when it comes to electric vehicles, I talk a lot to people who are interested in getting electric vehicles, but they're worried that there might not be the charging infrastructure there that they want to rely on and need to rely on to make that a cleaner vehicle purchase. I'm going to switch it over to Jeremy now, who can talk a little bit about some of the important pieces of the Build Back Better plan that can help us ensure that we have the infrastructure in place to make these clean transportation and energy transitions. Jeremy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Thank you. My name is Jeremy Ross. I'm the business manager for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 68 here in Denver. We represent about 2,200 electrical workers in the construction arena. And so there's a lot of provisions in the Build Back Better plan that lead to good middle-class family sustaining jobs in the electrical industry. And so this investment in our infrastructure is important. We had the actual infrastructure bill pass early, well, I guess late last year now at this point. And we're grateful for that, but we need to continue to invest in this type of infrastructure and these types of jobs. On the electric vehicle infrastructure is one of the key components of this Build Back Better plan. and to install those around the state. And in the process of doing so, we're supporting good middle-class family sustaining jobs like we talked about. There's, you know, we all know that this transition is not easy. There's been people that have been working on this for a long, long time. We had a business agent prior here working at the hall, Mary Broderick, and she had started working on the transition away from fossil fuels in the early 80s. She was an electrical contractor trying to promote solar in the early 80s, as you can imagine. That was a tricky proposition, but that's what she tried to do. And so we recognize that there is, you know, an imminent danger, and we need to make a transition away from these fossil fuels. That being said, from a worker perspective, we need to do it responsibly. There's a lot of people that have been working in these coal or in these fossil fuel jobs, whether it's coal or gas. And we need to make sure that we're providing good middle-class jobs for those people to transition into. If you can imagine being a second or third generation coal worker in Craig, Colorado, and you're hearing that the local plant and the mine is going to close, and your whole life, your livelihood has been there for generations, that's a hard prospect. That being said, those jobs are going to go away, and we just need to make sure that we're transitioning in a responsible manner. And Build Back Better invests a lot in retraining for not only those workers, but also for future generations. And so that's an important step in this. It's an incredibly complicated process, as many of you know that have been involved with this for many years. We're working on it every year. I know every year we get into legislative season, and we go through the bills and we work on them every single year. And so we really, this Build Back Better process will be the biggest investment in this transition in this country's history. And, hopefully it will be only one of many, because it's going to take a lot more than just this one plan to get this done. That being said, we absolutely support getting this thing passed, getting it across the finish line, working with our environmental partners. We are partners with the Blue Green Alliance. We work with many different trades, as well as many different environmental organizations to try and make good, responsible environmental process or policy moving forward. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting this across the finish line, no matter how many hurdles we got to jump.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeremy. And again, I'll put into the chat the news release that we have that has quotes from each of the speakers that you heard today, as well as some of the background information. We're happy to take questions. If you have any, you can put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we can try to answer them. But again, I just want to highlight that, from our perspective, we've obviously got some problems, whether it comes to the dirty air seasons that we've had, the climate change, extreme weather that we're seeing. We need to act, and we need Congress to do even more. We have the solutions, and you've heard lots of people talk already about everything from solar panels to more energy efficient homes, to electric vehicle charging, to more sustainable agriculture practices. There's a lot of solutions out there, and the components that we've been highlighting today, the clean energy and clean air components that are in this Build Back Better plan are critical pieces for Congress to act on. And so we're here today to call on Congress to act. We have the solutions to reduce pollution and to reduce our reliance on fossil fuel infrastructure right now, so that we can live a healthier and safer life. And it's important that Congress acts. I'll leave it open for just another little bit here. Does anyone have any questions? I'm not seeing anything in the chat or the Q&A. Sort of last call here, if anyone has any questions from our attendees. So let's leave it open for just a little bit longer here. Otherwise, you can always follow up with us afterwards. I'm sure anyone here would be happy to sit down and talk individually with any of the reporters that we have on. I'm not seeing anything, so I'll just wrap by saying thank you to all of the speakers that we had here today. Thank you to the organizations that helped put this together, including the Colorado Fiscal Institute, Mountain Mamas, the Blue Green Alliance, and Healthy Air and Water Colorado. Again, my name is Danny Katz with CoPERG, and again, thank you so much to all of our speakers for joining, and we're happy to chat with anybody after this. So thanks for coming, and we have a recording of this too if you need the recording. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye all.